time to move on past Rutgers. I know that's not the easiest thing to do, but it's time to move on to Virginia Tech in Boston College's first ACC game. We'll look at what the Virginia Tech Hokies bring, some challenges they may present, and everything in between on today's Locked On BC.
You are Locked On Boston College, your daily podcast on the Boston College Eagles, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome. This is Locked On Boston College. I'm your host, AJ Black. Happy Wednesday, everyone. We are now on Virginia Tech. Now, we've been talking about the Rutgers loss for the last couple of days, but as many coaches say, it's time to move on. It's time to move on to Blacksburg, and this is the first day we're going to talk about Virginia Tech. Interesting team that provides some interesting challenges, but is also kind of in the same shoes as the Eagles. Virginia Tech played their opening game against Old Dominion, a game that they also lost 20-17. And they the same battle in the boat as the Eagles in terms of trying to figure out how to get their season started. Now, this is the same Virginia Tech team that played against BC last year in the red bandana game, a game that saw Phil Kovic and return from his hand injury and lead them in terms of a big win for BC. Now, they're on path. Justin Fuente, they fired him at the end of the season. They hired Brent Pry, the defensive coordinator for Penn State, and the hope is that he's going to figure things out. Now, Mitch Wolf and we disagree on the positivity of this hire. Now, Mitch is much more down on this than I am. I like this hire. I think it's a good one. I think Pry reminds me a lot of the guys that made Virginia Tech great, whether it's Frank Beamer or Bud Foster. He just seems like he's in that same mold. And given some time, I think he'll get the Hokies to that next level. That being said, he has some difficult times ahead of him. Virginia Tech is not a very deep team right now. They're starting a quarterback, not Brent Pry, excuse me, that's the head coach. Grant Wells from Marshall, who had some great stats with the Thundering Herd, but man, did he have a tough first game for the Hokies. Throw for 4 interceptions, including the game-ending interception to the Old Dominion Monarchs. You look at where they're at. Virginia Tech lost, 15 guys in the transfer portal. They did not keep a lot of talent. That being said, as a Boston College fan, you saw what we saw against Rutgers, right? And you can't feel that confident because this is a night game in Blacksburg. And I don't need to tell Boston College fans what that means. When you play in Blacksburg, at Enter Sandman hits, when they can get that mojo going with that student section, it's a difference. It's a difference maker, right? They have one of the most unique stadiums in terms of game day atmospheres in college football. It's only at night. When you play at Lane Stadium during the day, it feels like any other stadium, and it's kind of quiet during the day, and on all honest opinions. But when you play at night, when the lights go down in Blacksburg, that stadium becomes something special. And now that Old Dominion has beaten Virginia Tech, I almost wanted to win that game, because now you go to Lane Stadium at night and they're going to be jonesing to beat this team. They're going to be playing at a higher level they did against Old Dominion because they're in front of their fans. They're in front of their donors, their families, all those players that have come before them. There's going to be them in the stand watching this. It's going to be a special game for the Hokies. And Boston College, you have to worry about where they're going to go with this because, Virginia Tech did they lost that game against Dominion, but that wasn't on the defense's fault. The defense allowed only, 245 yards entire game. They allowed 1 touchdown, and the rest was on, the offense. The offense look really, really poor, especially the passing offense. Their run game also, I mean, Keyshawn King had a decent game, but the rest of the offense didn't do much. And I look at what BC did and say they've got to come a long way if they're going to win this game, because I am not sold on the Hokies being the worst team here. I'm not sold on that yet. And as much as I want to go on here and spam the fans and really troll them, I don't see it yet. I want to see that BC can put together a full game on both sides of the ball. The offensive line, they need to play better. The defensive line, they got to play a whole game. Defensive line didn't do that bad against Rutgers. They just fell apart at the end. But this is a night game. I love night games. I don't know about you folks, but I love a good night game. And it adds a special flavor to a series that I think, has kind of run its course. This is the last year that BC gets Virginia Tech on their schedule as a regular opponent. Then after one of those teams, they play every 3 years. So gone are the days of Matt Ryan and Tyrod Taylor and Sean Glennon and who am I forgetting on the back end? Cam Chancellor. Those games are gone. The big ACC championship games between these programs. Right now, on paper, you have a BC team that underperformed last week, and you have a Virginia Tech team underperformed for years too. There is a lot at stake in this game. There is a lot for both of these teams. Losing an out-of-conference game is tough. When you lose to Rutgers, when you lose to Old Dominion, those games. But you can turn that all around with a first win in the conference, because when you look at the standing, when they put the standings in ESPN, when they put the standings in the papers, they don't do it based off of overall record. They do it on conference record. So BC could go into, week 3 with a 1-1 record and be first in the conference, or tied for first in the conference with 1 win. That's a big deal. That basically puts you where you want to be. And yeah, you don't want to lose to Rutgers. You don't want that loss over your head. But for both of these, they want that first ACC win. They want that. And when you look, I'm going to put this up on the screen in a second. When you look at, I love this Twitter account, Stats of War. He puts up, the basic, statistical analysis of every game going on in college football. And then he gives his win probability. And you look at where these two teams are and how close this is. BC has a 54% chance of winning this game. And the projected points is 27.97 to 26.55. What a close game this could be. It could be an ugly, ugly affair. But we're going to get into where I think BC might have a little bit of an edge in just a moment. But before we do that, I want to talk to you about Locked On ACC. Locked On ACC is your place to go. And if you want to get your ACC coverage, it's hosted by the great Candace Cooper, and she tells you everything that you need to know about college football in the Atlantic Coast Conference. So make sure to check out Locked On ACC wherever you get your podcasts. And I'd like to thank LinkedIn Jobs for being the official college football recruiter sponsor across the Locked On College Network. LinkedIn Jobs helps you get your jobs noticed and helps you get the candidate to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. Terms and conditions apply. And as you gear up for the fall, you need the right people on your team to help your business fire on all cylinders. LinkedIn Jobs is here for you to make it easier. Head over to LinkedIn Jobs to make sure you create a free job post in minutes to your network and beyond in the world's largest professional network of over 810 million people. Then add your job in the purple hashtag hiring frame to your LinkedIn profile to spread the word that you're hiring so your network can help you find the right people to hire. Simple tools like screening questions make it easy to focus on candidates with just the right skills and experience. You quickly prioritize who you'd like to interview and hire. It's why small businesses rate LinkedIn jobs #1 in delivering quality hires versus leading competitors. LinkedIn jobs help you find the candidates you want to talk to faster. Did you know every week nearly 40 million job seekers visit LinkedIn? Post your job free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. That's linkedin.com/lockedoncollege to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. Locked On Boston College, AJ Black here, and we are talking about the Tech game. And we were discussing a little bit about how important this game is for all teams involved, and that this is we're almost at the point now where this is a must-win game for BC, because after this game, you have Maine. That game doesn't really matter. When you play the Black Bears, it's what it is, right? You're playing against a team that's not all that good. But after that, you're going off to Florida State. You play Florida State on the road, and we saw what Florida State could do. They looked very good against LSU, and they have all the mojo going in the world. And Jordan Travis looked much more like the Jordan Travis we saw against Boston College just last year. That looks like a challenge. So this is a win. This is a game BC has to win. This is a game that, even though you're on the road, that you're playing at Lane Stadium, you need to win this game. And so, what are Virginia Tech's weaknesses? What is it about this team that BC could exploit? Well, first of all, the quarterback play against Old Dominion was awful. It was really bad. Grant Wells threw 21 for 36 with 1 touchdown and 4 interceptions and an ESPN QBR rating of 31.7. They somehow lost to a team with Hayden Wolf, who threw for 4 for 35, 165 yards, and a QB rating of 24. So this game was a game of two terrible quarterbacks, playing a very poor game together. However, look at Grant Wells, and I worry, because BC just to a team that had no quarterback and still beat them. I mean, no offense to Rutgers, but they couldn't throw the football. Grant Wells can sort of throw the football. He's not all that accurate. So that leads to the question, what's better for BC? Playing a team like Rutgers that has no quarterback who can run the ball down your throat, or play a team like Virginia Tech who has a quarterback like Grant Wells who just makes a ton of mistakes and can turn the ball over? I actually think Virginia Tech is a better matchup because they're going to make mistakes. I mean, Wells made a lot of mistakes against Old Dominion. So that might actually line up better for the Eagles. Like, Rutgers just played careful. They didn't want to let you beat them. They didn't want to let BC beat them by shooting themselves in the foot. All Grant Wells did last week was shoot himself in the foot. That literally was like what he did all last week. So that could be a position where BC might have a bit of an edge. The other piece that I look at is on in terms of the defense. I look at what Virginia Tech did. They only had 1 sack that entire game. Now, what was one thing that Phil Dracovic had an issue with? It was pressure. Virginia Tech couldn't get home against Old Dominion, and Old Dominion dropped back at least 35 times. And that shows you that they may not get the pressure Rutgers did. So I still have some reservation with this piece, because I think Virginia Tech does have more, they might have just got caught asleep at the wheel there. But I look at this and I go, maybe BC has a little bit of an edge if their offensive line plays better. Again, looking at all this, I have to say, again, I can give you all the stats in the world. If BC's not executing on both ends, if they're making mistakes, if they're missing blocks, if their defense is all out of place, none of this matters, right? I can give you the stats till my face turns blue and give you some projections if they can improve. But if they don't, it's all pointless. So I'm giving you some thoughts here. I'm giving you what I think. And I realistically think I guess it's the optimism in me that, yeah, I understand you are all upset with Jeff Halfley. You think that he's failed you, that there's no improvement, that they're 2-7 in their last 9 games. But I am gonna it's a boring season if I just think they're gonna fall on their face for the next 12 weeks. I see what I saw on that tape, and I said, okay, yeah, that's ugly as heck. That's ugly, but I can see it's fixable. There's stuff that they were doing that with a little bit more reps that continue to build, maybe they can fix some of that stuff. And I think that if Boston College can do some of that, then maybe these statistics will matter. That we're not just talking about, well, if Drew Kendall doesn't fall on his face and Jack Conley has a better game, is that going to actually happen? I do think these are things that could happen. I do think they might take a step forward. And if you look at the mistakes that they made last week and clean them up, BC had a good scheme there, but there were so many of them. Maybe if with a fresh start, they figure some stuff out. That's all I'm saying here. I'm not going to be all roses and maroon and gold roses here, folks, because I do know that what they did last week was very, very concerning. And so I'm going to go into this week a little skeptical. I'm going to be just like you all. I'm going to be skeptical. I'm going to be a little nervous that things aren't going to change, and we'll have to wait and see what happens. Now, speaking of skepticism, in a moment, I'm going to get into college basketball, which we have not spoken about in a while, as I'm going to look at a big time recruit who's about to name his commitment, and Boston College is in his final group. We'll get into that in just a moment. Locked on Boston College, AJ Black. Thank you all for listening. And just a reminder, if you're listening to this on YouTube, we are on our quest for 600 subscribers right now before the start of the basketball season. So if you're listening to this on YouTube, just hit the subscribe button. Even if you are a regular listener on the podcast and aren't into doing that, just hit it. Just hit subscribe. We're going to be doing this a lot more on YouTube, doing live, having commenters on our podcast, talk about what you guys have to say. So make sure you hit that subscribe button and help us in our quest for 600. All right. It's been a while since we've talked college basketball here on Locked On BC. And we're on the home stretch in terms of them starting their season, getting ready for that first opening game, Dartmouth. But what I look at, as we're getting there, is the recruiting trail that is getting BC fans all hot and bothered, and that is TJ Power, a power forward / center out of Worcester Academy, class of 23, who is a top 100 recruit, who has BC in his final grouping, along with Duke, UNC, Iowa, and UVA. And this would be a game-changing recruit for the College Eagles. TJ Power blew up this offseason with some tremendous play on the AAU circuit, really putting himself out there as one of the biggest and best recruits that BC ever been associated with. And the fact that he's in there at this point, that he is ready to make his decision, and BC is in there, that decision, that discussion group, is very exciting. Now, you're all listening to this going, okay, so he's down to UNC, Duke, UVA, and BC and Iowa. Does BC actually have any chance? I'm going to have to be the skeptical person here, folks. I don't think they do. Unfortunately, this would be a game-changing recruit. I don't see it happening. When you have Duke and UNC floating around, and you can sell the Coach K arena and the Dean Smith arena and the history that both of those programs have. I mean, even UVA, they just won a national championship 2-3 years ago. This is not any way, shape, or form a condemnation of what Earl Grant's doing, because I think he's doing some really great stuff. But I don't think BC right now is in that class. Now, I would love to be wrong here. They've got the new practice facility. They've got some momentum. Maybe he wants to play closer to home. Who knows? But if you're going by the 247 crystal balls, the Devil's Den, who cover Duke, they both have going to Duke. And, maybe they know something, maybe they don't. But he's going to decide today at 5 p.m. And if he does choose B, head over to Eagle Insider. We'll have full coverage of his decision. And even if he doesn't, I'm sure the national guys will have it up on our site too. So this is AJ Black. Thank you all for listening. We'll be back tomorrow as we continue our trek towards the Virginia Tech game and hopefully BC's first win of the season. If you have not done so already, make sure to subscribe to our Locked BC YouTube page. It really does help. We're getting closer to 600 every day. All of you are making a big difference here. Thank you all. We will see you again soon. Take care.